Alright. See if we can't find the stream on Twitch. Shouldn't be too far away, I imagine. Yeah, it's just loading onto the channel now. Still taking a little while to load. There is the channel there. And that's a Twitch ad. I think the audio is working. I heard myself gasp just before the ad popped up. So I think the audio should be working as it should be. Well, hello everyone and welcome to round 6 of the AM1 Championship here on Contest of Speed. I'm Lane Everingham, your commentator for this event, and this time we're racing at Autodromo Enzo Edina Ferrari for the San Marino Grand Prix. Imola, as it's more commonly known, is a 3.05 mile 19-turn circuit that was constructed in 1953. It's often regarded as one of the most iconic circuits in the history of Formula One, having been at the centre of some of the greatest triumphs and tragedies the sport has ever seen. First hosting a Grand Prix in 1980, Imola continued to host Grand Prix until 2006, where the track dropped off the calendar, thought never to be seen again. That was until the dramatic year of 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic. During that year, in Formula One's desperation to host as many races as possible, Imola got its long-awaited return. And it's looking like it's here to stay. It's a tight, technical, tough-to-pass racetrack. The only real overtaking opportunity is with the help of DRS down the main straight, heading towards the iconic Variante Tamburello. The rest of the circuit consists of some pretty challenging complexes that feature really, really nasty curbs, most notably Acqua Minerale. As a result, drivers will be keen on getting as far up the field as possible during qualifying, though I imagine now, looking at the field size for tonight's event, that probably isn't as great a priority as it should be. It is really quite depressing to see only 11 cars for tonight. It could be 12. We might be waiting on Cameron, I should say, on joining the session, but we'll have to wait and see. But speaking of qualifying, as you can see, it's nice and dry for this session, and it should be dry in the race as well, so we shouldn't have any rain interference whatsoever. But before we focus on qualifying, there is a bit of news to go through first from last week's race. There was only a single incident report involving Vermeulen and Cos Verstappen. The outcome was a 5-second time penalty and 1 penalty point for Verstappen. That would mean he would move from P3 to P2 in the final results at Spa. There was also an absence reprimand for Cameron, and for the reserve driver, I think it was Mantis joining the session, he was given an absence reprimand for not properly filling attendance. Now, looking at the Drivers' Championship, Barmer 22 is leading the way on 110 points. P2 is Verstappen, who, as you can see, is absent for today's race. He's on 56. Barmer almost has twice the amount of points as the man in P2. That is the lead he's got right now in the AM1 Championship. It is, there's no other way of putting it, massive. P3 is Bruno Diaz in the Mercedes on 47 points, followed by Artemello and the Haas on 43. Then Airborne Tiger rounds out the top 5 on 38. Next is Vermeulen on 35, followed by Saint in the other AlphaTauri on 24. Then Fortnite Racing on 23, Andy Wu on 14, and he's currently equal 10th with Arbar, also on 14 points. Barmer's just set the first benchmark time, 1 minute 15.926. In the Constructors, Alfa Romeo leading on 148 points, followed by AlphaTauri on 80. Yeah, Alfa Romeo well and truly out in front in the Constructors' Championship, as Berzi has had a moment at Tosa. Speaking of Red Bull, they're third in the championship on 51 points, followed by Mercedes on 47, then Haas on 46, McLaren on 28, Alpine on 23, Aston Martin on 20, Ferrari on 13, and last in the championship is Williams on 9 points. We have 2 drivers filling in for tonight. We got Electric Blade in the Alpine, replacing Fortnite Racing, and we got VTEC in the Ferrari, replacing P-Dog Peyton. But that's it in terms of news. Now time to keep our eyes out for this qualifying session. Now, something that I've always believed in when it comes to league racing is that field size has never, ever, ever dictated race quality. So even though the numbers don't look particularly great, you still have to remain somewhat hopeful for an interesting race, because it's definitely possible. As VTEC's elected to retire from the session. Fair play, he's a reserve driver, so he's decided to park the bus. So... But yeah, Jay, we only have 11. It could be 12, as I mentioned. We might have one driver on the way, but that is quite literally it. But yeah, still got to remain somewhat hopeful for an interesting race. It is possible. Currently, we got an interesting scrap at the top of the table during this session, as someone's had a moment. It's Electric Blade off the racetrack at Variante Alta. Vermu, Barber, Bruno Diaz, and Artemello have proved to be very capable drivers during qualifying and the race. So hopefully we still have a battle towards the top of the table, as Artemello's coming towards the end of a flying lap to set a 1 minute 15.890. He's just missed out on pole position by, what's that, 17 thousandths of a second. So it's really, really tight between the top two, and Barber's not too far behind. Kitten Petter, he's on an in-lap. You can tell from the flashing red fuel icon on the telemetry. Actually, that's just reminded me of something that I didn't do before I turned on the stream. Turn that to miles an hour. Lovely, lovely. There we are. Bersey appears to be on an in-lap. He set a more appropriate lap time, 1 minute 16.890. His first lap time wasn't representative thanks to his spin at Toza. Now, Barmer 22 on an out lap getting ready. Same with Bruno Diaz. They're not too far off pole position, as I've mentioned before. Bruno would need to find about 0.3 of a second to try and challenge pole. Barmer would have to find just under, or rather just over half a tenth. If I switch to leader, yeah, just over half a tenth. Look at that. Top three separated by less than a tenth at the moment. That's actually pretty cool. As Artemello will duck back into pit lane, put on a new set of soft tyres and get out there in a few moments' time. As Bruno's actually caught up to Barmer here. He's right behind him. In fact, he's trying to pass him here at Variante Alta. Now he checks the car up. Starts to create a gap to Barmer. I don't know why the outlap indicator disappears. They're not on a flying lap here. They're still on an outlap, but the outlap indicator on the leaderboard disappears. Just a lovely little glitch in the game. You can add on to the other glitches that are very much apparent in F1 22. Tell you what, we're right on board with our championship leader. Give you a guided tour of this legendary racetrack around turn 1 and down towards Variante Tamburello. Turns 2, 3, and into the left-hander of turn 4. Be careful of that inside curb. It can be quite nasty. You can ride it a little bit. You just can't ride it too much. Into Variante Villeneuve. Turns 5 and 6. Then up towards the hairpin of Toza. Potential overtaking spot if you get a nice run out of Villeneuve, but it is very tricky to pull off. Around the flat-out right-hand kink of turn 8. Then up towards Piratella. Turn 9. You don't want to run too wide here, otherwise you'll cop a warning. Around turn 10, now into Aqua Minerale. Turn 11, 12 and 13. Traction is incredibly limited through here, as Barmer demonstrated quite well. So you do have to be quite careful. Into Variante Alta. Barmer's currently up by 2.5 tenths to the middle sector as he comes out of the chicane and heads down towards turn 16 and towards Ravazza, as Bruno Diaz has actually retired. He has crashed out at Piratella. As Barmer comes out of Ravazza, heading up towards the line. Let's see if we can't find what's happened here. His car's just despawned, so Bruno's lost control of the car coming out of turn 9, and he's put it into the barrier, I believe, on the left-hand side of the racetrack. So Bruno, he will not be able to challenge for pole position. It's quite unfortunate, because he definitely could. Barmer's now asserted himself at the front of the field. 1 minute 15.507. Next best time is Vermu with a 1 minute 15.716. Kitten Petta on the flying lap. He's currently up by 2.5 tenths to the first sector. Coming through Aqua Minerale, over the crescent, up towards Variante Alta. The middle sector says he's up by almost 4 tenths. With that sort of improvement, he can crack into the 15s. Nice run out to the chicane. And now heading down towards turn 16, then into the critical Ravazza curves of turn 17 and 18. 18 is more important of the two. Oh, as he's completely missed the apex, lost control of the car, and has put it into the wall. Now, that was quite sloppy there from Petta, not going to lie. He rode the outside curb at turn 17 quite awkwardly. And as a result, he couldn't get the car rotated towards the apex at 18. Sort of slid wide and tried to pick it up early at the exit of Ravazza to try and recover time, and he lost control of the car. Fortunately, he didn't put it into the barrier hard enough to take himself out of the session. So, commentator's curse. Oh, is that right, Petta? From the looks of things, to be honest, you did that to yourself. Yeah, it's stuck on the curb. Yeah, the car bottoms out on the outside curb. Can't get any rotation when it starts to bottom out. Berzi getting himself ready for a flying lap. He's making his way out of Ravazza. Heading up towards the final corner, turn 19. He'll cross the line to begin his flying lap. Up towards the left-hander of turn 1. Yes, that's a corner on the official track map. Now into Variante Tamburello, turns 2, 3, into turn 4, and that's Artemello throwing his lap away at the exit of Tamburello. Has to do a bit of rallycross to get himself back onto the racetrack. Does so successfully. No obvious damage on the Haas from what I could see, but he might just go back into pit lane, wait until the end of the session, then do one final flying lap. Berzi making his way around Piratella, turn 9, then around turn 10, and down the hill towards Aqua Minerale, turn 11. Brings it down to third gear through 12. Climbs out at 13. A little bit sideways there, but he kept it under control, and he's currently up by half a second to the middle sector. Through Variante Alta, gets a nice run there. Nice traction on the exit as well. That Red Bull looked quite stable. Over the crest, down the hill around turn 16. Now into Ravazza, turn 17, then turn 18. Gets nice rotation through 18. No hint of oversteer whatsoever. So a tidy end to the lap for Berzi. Crosses the line and jumps up to P5 with a 1 minute 16.311. Artemello, yep, he's going back into the pits as I thought he would. Game Boy currently down by a tenth to the first sector. What does the clock say to the middle sector? He is pushing, he is using battery, and he's well down. So I reckon he's just pushing to get back into pit lane. Get on another set of soft compound tyres. I can hear plenty of wheel spin going on for some reason. Anyway. Mitch Burns making his way out to turn 13. He's heading up towards the middle sector split. Clock says he's down by 0.2 of a second. So he might be going back into pit lane himself. Get on one final set of tyres and electric blade. Getting himself ready. Heading out to Toza. Kitten Petta. You're on a flying lap it seems. Around turn 3 into turn 4. They're heading up towards Variante Villeneuve. Turns 5 and 6. Down to 6th gear. Down to 5th gear. Running a tad bit wide, but he doesn't invalidate his flying lap, but he does run a bit wide at Toza. Gets a pretty nice exit though. He didn't hit the apex, but he did get a nice exit. Around Piratella, turn 9. Around turn 10, and down the hill towards Aqua Minerale. Entry speed 180 miles an hour heading into Aqua Minerale, and it's almost a flat-out corner there as well. Middle sector says for Kitten Petta he's up by a tenth as he heads into Variante Alta. Modulating the throttle not nicely enough. Loses control and puts it into the grass. That will be the end of that flying lap. Fortunately, though, he's got tons of time left in this session. Try and do another. Vermeer not on a flying lap. He's made a mistake somewhere. It seems he's down by 13 seconds. So, yeah, he's made some sort of mistake through Tamburello, I would think. It's Electric Blade making his way through Variante Villeneuve, crossing the first sector split. And he's just a little bit down by 64 thousandths of a second. Out of the hairpin of Tozer, up towards turn 8. And the very fast left-hander of Piratella, turn 9, down to 5th gear, back on the accelerator, then eventually reaching full throttle, just as soon as he left the curb on the outside of turn 9. Up the hill, he understeers wide and loses control of the car. Yeah, didn't get a great run into turn 12. He understeered wide, and yeah, picked up the throttle too soon, spun the car out. Maybe a hint of frustration with that spin as well, with him making that mistake. Oh, you want me to stop looking at... Yeah, alright. Well, I've got to look at someone. We only got 11 cars on the grid. Artemello getting ready. Barmer getting ready. Mitch Burns as well. This will be their preparations for their final flying lap in this qualifying session. Can anyone challenge Barmer? That's been a question being put up to a lot of drivers over the course of this season, and nobody's had a response to that question. We've had 5 races so far. Out of those 5 races, Barmer has been on the podium in all of them, and he's won 3 of them. That's why he's got such a humongous lead in the Drivers' Championship. Now remember, he's on 110 points. P2 is Verstappen, who isn't here. He's on 56. It's a big gap. 'Twas one heck of a donut there, Jay. Quite a nice looking donut from the camera angle that we had. As Artemello crosses the line to begin what could be his final flying lap. Now he does have time to do another flying lap if he makes a mistake through Variante Tamburello. Coming out to turn 4, heading up towards Villeneuve. The yellow flag's out. That might be Electric Blade. It is. Bringing out yellows. That's at the exit of Variante Alta. Barmer sets off on his final flying lap. Artemello's up by 0.2 of a second to the first sector. Oh, but he throws it away. Puts it into the wall. He's retired from the session. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Big spin coming out to Tozer. Got on the throttle way too soon. Lost control of the car and put it into the wall. As Barmer's up by 0.1 of a second to the first sector. Oh, and he loses control of the car, but gathers it up somehow. He was completely sideways at the exit of Tozer. Vermeer on an out lap. Does he have time left in this session? Hard to tell. The yellow flags are covering the timer. 28 seconds. I don't think Vermeer will make it. No, he won't be able to make it. He'll run out of time, I think. Bersey, his session is done. Kitten Pezza making his way around Tozer. I won't look at him for his own benefit. Around Piratella, Elite Game Boy makes his way down towards Aqua Minerale, as Mitch Burns in the Ferrari has just jumped up to P3 with a 1 minute 15.761. So a nice recovery at the end of qualifying for Mitch as Barmer just parks the car. Oh, and Game Boy's invalidated his flying lap. Airborne Tiger is making his way through Aqua Minerale, up the hill through turns 12 and 13. He'll cross the middle sector split. What does the clock say for the Alfa Romeo driver? He's up by 0.3 of a second. If he can find a bit more time here in the final sector, he'll be able to jump into the 1 minute 15s, which will mean a top 5 start for Airborne. Down the hill towards Ravazza. Turns 17 and 18 on the racetrack. It's a nice run. Out of 18, no oversteer, no understeer whatsoever. He'll cross the line to jump up to P3. He found quite a bit of time in that final sector. He's missed out on the front row start by no short than 0.008 of a second as Vermeer. He's ruined his final flying lap, so he managed to actually cross the line to try and attempt a final flying lap, but he's thrown it away at Variante Alta. Did catch a quick glance of his middle sector split. He was down, but only by 24 thousandths of a second. So It looked like Vermeer could have improved if he nailed this final sector, but I don't think he was challenging for pole at the end of qualifying. The best he could hope for was P2. That's exactly where he's starting. But it's Barmer22 who starts from pole once again. 1 minute 15.507. He actually bailed on his final flying lap. Didn't bother completing it. It's a healthy gap between him and Vermeer. Just over 0.2 of a second. And it's a really tight gap between Vermeer and Airborne Tiger. 8,000 separating those two at the end. Less than a tenth, actually, separating P2 to P4. So, yeah, pretty close out there. Artemello, Bruno Diaz, I'm sure they were looking for more during this qualifying session. But, yeah, with a field of 11 cars, qualifying won't mean much. What will mean a great deal, though, will be the race start. If you get it wrong, you'll be down the pack, and it will be difficult to make your way through. But it's Barmer22 who starts from pole. Vermeer will start alongside him on the front row. Airborne Tiger is next from P3, then Mitch Burns P4, then the two Brazilians of Artemello and Bruno Diaz will make up the third row. Berzy's next, followed by Kitten Patter, then Elite Game Boy. Electric Blade rounds out the 10, and VTech retired at the beginning of qualifying. He will start from the back. Yeah, quite right, Jay. A few people who I was looking at did spin out. Hopefully that doesn't happen in the race. But it really just sort of demonstrates how tough this racetrack is. It is seriously, seriously tough. So many tricky traction zones out of some very tricky complexes. And also really nasty curbs around this place. So, yeah. It's just a handful. It's a little surprise then that we had only half the field check in for racing. Half of the field checked in to not race. We had... Yeah. It's a bit disheartening, but it's not at all surprising. And I don't really blame people for not wanting to play this game either. It really is a big pile of rubbish. Slapped with an EA sticker on the front of it. So, formation lap time. Drivers will be fine-tuning their setup for the start of this Grand Prix. Maybe taking a little bit of wing off to improve straight line speed. Seeing as you can't pass for about maybe 85% of the racetrack, downforce won't mean a great deal unless you're at the front of the field, like Barmer. So, some drivers will be looking to try and make moves up through the field, and in order to do that, you need to trim some wing off. Another note as well, that after a recent patch, Parc Ferme doesn't work. Even if you have it switched on in the settings, it won't be working when you enter the lobby. So, drivers will be able to completely change their setup from qualifying into the race. So, as the session ticks down to 0, we'll get this formation lap underway. Rightio, who's starting on what tyre? Can see some hard tyres, can see some mediums. So who's on what? Oh, look at that. It's almost a 50-50 split. So we got Barmer starting from pole on the hard tyre. Vermeer will start alongside on the mediums. Airborne Tiger is the next car, starting on the hard tyre. Mitch Burns from P4 will be starting on the mediums. Next two cars, Artemello and Bruno Diaz, they're starting on the hards. Bersey is starting on the mediums in P7. Kitten Petter P8 on the hard tyre. Game Boy and Electric Blade P9 and 10 on the mediums. And VTech will start from the back on the hard tyre. So we have 5 cars on the mediums and 6 cars on the hards. Almost a 50-50 split. So that's pretty cool. We'll get rid of the tyre graphic for now. We'll introduce it later when we get closer towards the pit window. Or pit cycle, I should say. No, it's been a little while. Ah, there we go. Thank you, game. So, predicted pit stop strategy. The pit window is at lap 14 to 18. I'm going to write that down for myself so I can remember. So yeah, to get off the medium compound tyre onto the hard, pit window is lap 14 to 18. Interesting. So some drivers will be looking to do sort of a 50-50 split when it comes to the hard and medium compound tyres. Do about 16 laps on the hard tyres, 16 laps on the mediums. It's just where do you want to use that medium tyre? Do you want to use it straight away, try and build up a gap to your rivals behind? Or do you want to save it for later? And it appears that with the 11 drivers we have here for this race, some drivers can't... there's no obvious advantage either way. Some drivers want the advantage now. Some drivers want the advantage later. But all the 11 cars on the grid lined up ready to race. We got 10 red lights. And we're underway here at Imola. It's a nice start from the looks of things from Barmer 22 as they head down towards turn 1 for the first time. Vermouth trying to draw alongside, heading around the outside at Variante Tamburello. Sends it down the inside of turn 2, but can't... Oh! Off the racetrack is Airborne Tiger. And a Haas, it's Artemello in P9. Oh, and he spins out. Putting it into the wall, destroying his front wing. And we've got a virtual safety car. It took only a matter of 4 corners, and we have a VSC. Yeah, it appears that Airborne and Arta came together there through Tamburello. Saw Airborne off the racetrack, and I think Arta was just sort of collected with him. But for Arta, he lost control on the grass and put it into the wall. That's why he's got a destroyed front wing. Thanks to the debris on the racetrack, a virtual safety car has been deployed. This will allow Arta to somewhat keep up with the leaders during this opening lap, but he will have to come in and get that front wing fixed. Hopefully he doesn't retire from the session, but it is entirely possible. Out in front, Bummer 22 has a half-second lead over Vermouth in P2. The Vermouth on the medium compound tyre will be looking to attack. Try and get by and make the most of those medium compound tyres. Through Variante Tamburello. Coming around turn 4 and heading down the straightaway towards Variante Villeneuve. The gap hasn't closed up. In fact, it's extended between the top two. See a nice little interval glitch here between P3 and 4. Hopefully that will fix itself at the end of this lap. As Mitch Burns is applying plenty of pressure to Bruno Diaz in front. Leaders head around turn 8. These two are heading around Piratella turn 9. Oh, a bit wide there from Mitch, losing him a little bit of time. Now into Aqua Minerale, up the hill, over the crest and up towards Variante Alta. Mitch not close enough to attack just yet. Game Boy hovering just under 1 second behind Mitch Burns. Burzy is next, followed by Kitten Petta. Electric Blade, VTEC and Airborne Tiger at the back of this train. Or as Arta has a moment at turn 7. But he managed to gather it up. And he's still running. Here comes Vermouth. Attacking. He'll get by very easily. Round turn 1, up towards Variante Tamburello. It's a battle on here at turn 2. Through turn 3, there's contact. Barner manages to keep control of the car. And Vermouth opens the door to let him back through. So Vermouth feels that that overtake he made wasn't right. So he let Barmer back through. Either that or he got an illegal overtake prompt, which, knowing this game, is entirely possible. Around turn 8, up towards Piratella turn 9. Then around turn 10 and down the hill towards Aqua Minerale. The gap increases between the top two to half a second. So go through turn 12 into turn 13. The gap increases that little bit more as they head towards Variante Alta. You see there, Barmer using the full width of the circuit at entry there. He used every bit of curb heading into Variante Alta. But Vermeer on those softer tyres is able to keep up and close the gap. Through Ravazza, turns 17 and 18, back onto the main straightaway. See Vermeer closing in, he now has DRS. He'll be able to slingshot by here with relative ease. And he does slingshot by with relative ease. Down into Variante Tamburello. Vermeer has now taken the lead. Airborne Tiger has overtaken VTEC as well for P9. Barmer, 1.5 tenths behind. Shadowing the Red Bull as best he can. They head into the hairpin of Toza. Oh, a bit of a wiggle there from Vermeer. Losing the control of the car briefly. Barmer closes in. Not by enough, though, to attack into turn 9. Artemello sets a new fastest lap. 1 minute 18.7. Demonstrating the pace he's got on those medium tyres. Heading over the crest out of turn 13. Down the short straightaway towards Variante Alta. See drivers there using all of the curb available to them. Riding right up against the white line at the exit of the chicane. Down the hill around turn 16. Barmer, he'll be able to line up and overtake here down the main straightaway. Won't be much Vermeer can do about it either. Down the main straight we go. Vermeer's got a nice exit out of Ravazza. You can see here Barmer using battery and DRS to close in on the Red Bull. Around turn 1, up towards Variante Villeneuve. Barmer looks to the inside, but doesn't fully commit to the move. Mitch Burns, he did commit to a move. He's gone by Bruno Diaz into P3. The Game Boy just behind this battle as well. See him trying to get by the Mercedes of Bruno. So they head around the hairpin of Toza. Berzi is on the back of this battle. And just 1 second behind Berzi is Kittenpetter in P7. Vermeer out in front. 2.5 seconds over Barmer. 2.5 tenths of a second over Barmer. Sector 2 yellows. It's Berzi. Spinning out at Piratella. No damage on the Red Bull. At least no obvious damage on the Red Bull from what I can see from this aerial shot. But he's now down in 10th. 7.4 seconds behind the train of cars he was once with. Down towards Ravazza. Barmer applying a lot of pressure here to Vermeer. Vermeer, can he get a nice exit here out of 18? He does. Oh, and Barmer. Big old tank slapper coming out of turn 18. But he gathered it up beautifully. Down the main straightaway around turn 1. He closes the gap. But thanks to that mistake at the exit of Ravazza, he wasn't able to attack into Tamburello. But he's going to apply tons of pressure to the Red Bull driver. Try and force a mistake as they head through Villeneuve. Up towards the hairpin of Toza. Barmer closes in, but not by enough to attack. Mitch Burns, 1.3 seconds behind. Trying to close the gap to the top 2 as Barmer's got to run. He draws alongside the Red Bull. No, he backs out. Fair play. You don't want to be on the inside for Piratella. It's very difficult to make a move there at the left-hander. Ideally, you want to be on the outside. That way you can try and carry more speed into the corner and try and swoop around your rival rather than dive them to the inside. Out of Variante Alta. Not a great exit from Barmer at all. A lot of wiggling out of the chicane. But he's still half a second behind the race leader. Mitch Burns, meanwhile, has almost close to within a second of Barmer. DRS detection zone here on this circuit is just before turn 17. So I don't... Oh, no, he does have DRS. Interesting. I didn't think he had it, but no, he had it. Down the inside, Barmer looks here into Tamburello. A simple maneuver within the braking zone of the chicane. He gets in front and retakes the lead on lap 7 of 32. Vermeer, he needs to try and keep up with the race leader. Try and not lose too much time through this middle sector. Mitch Burns, he needs to try and keep within a second of the top two as well. Bruno is losing time to Mitch. He's on the hard compound tyre, remember. Doesn't quite have the pace of the mediums right now. They head through Piratella and down the hill towards Aqua Minerale. 0.4 of a second separating P4 and 5 at the moment. Kitapeta just behind this as well in P6. Airborne Tiger is a bit too far away. 2.9 seconds behind. Make that 3 seconds now. Airborne Tiger has got a lot of work to do. Nice run there from Game Boy. As they head down the hill towards Ravazza. Game Boy might be able to try and line up a pass here on Bruno down the main straightaway towards Tamburello. Speaking of which, Vermouth closing in at a rate of knots thanks to DRS, but he doesn't have any battery to spend. As a result, he can't close in anymore. Game Boy, meanwhile, has passed Bruno Diaz for P4. Can he close in on Mitch Burns in the Ferrari? Out to Tamburello. Heading up towards Variante Villeneuve. Game Boy just hovering outside of that 1 second range. Oh, he needs a pretty solid middle sector to close in anymore. And I think he made a mistake coming out of Villeneuve as well. It was hard to tell from the camera angle, but he did lose about 0.2 to Mitch Burns coming out of turn 6. So I think he did make a mistake. Vermouth keeping up with Barmer, but he doesn't have the same advantage he once had on those medium tyres. And he doesn't have battery to spend either, as Kitapeta is going to go round the outside of Bruno here. An audacious move, but he runs wide. Bruno now draws alongside. Oh, but Kitapeta's got the run. Heading down towards Ravazza. He'll hang on to P5, but that will mean he's completely vulnerable down the main straightaway. Bruno will have DRS here. He'll open it. Will he use any battery? Doesn't look like he's using any battery. Kitapeta is definitely using battery. Around turn 1, heading towards Variante Tamburello, I should say. As Electric Blade goes around the outside of Airborne Tiger and takes P7. Airborne Tiger shadowing the Alpine. Trying to create a mistake. As I've said before, it's really tough to pass, but Airborne Tiger has an opportunity around the outside of Toza. A nice move there from Airborne Tiger. An opportunity arose, and Airborne took it with both hands. And I think credit to Electric Blade. I think he bailed out of that battle. Just let Airborne Tiger back through. Meanwhile, I think Vermouth has made a mistake. He's now 1.4 seconds behind Barmer. Used to be within a second, and he's now 1.5 seconds behind. So, and he's going to have a really tough time closing that gap up too. Those medium tyres won't be as good as they used to be. And he doesn't have battery either. 11% compared to Barmer on 79. Barmer has got a considerable advantage right here. He's got track position. He's got tyres that are working optimally now. And he's got tons of battery. Barmer, the untouchable, it would seem. During the season of racing. He's going to remain untouchable. So long as he doesn't make a mistake. Bruno Diaz, meanwhile. Applying pressure to Kitapeta. And that's Burzy off the racetrack at Tamburello. He'll rejoin safely, but he's lost a considerable amount of time, and he did go a fair way off into the gravel trap. No obvious signs of damage, though, on the Red Bull. Meanwhile, Electric Blade trying to keep within a second of Airborne Tiger as they head through Aqua Minerale. Through turn 12, around turn 13, over the crest and towards Variante Alta. Closes the gap bit by bit, corner by corner. Oh, missed the apex there. The exit of Variante Alta cost him a few tenths. Bruno applying pressure to Kitapeta as they head around Ravazza and back onto the main straightaway. Bruno has got a ton of battery to use, and he's going to use it now. His DRS open, he's sitting in the slipstream, he's using up battery, heading around turn 1, up towards Tamburello. Petter leaves the inside door open, and Bruno walks through that said inside door and moves himself into P5. But Kid and Petter not giving up, as Artemella gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. Petter's still within half a second of Bruno. He'll try his best to not let him go. Vermeer losing time to the race leader. The gap is now 1.7 seconds between the top two, as Airborne Tiger and Electric Blade are still battling for position. Blade has gotten by Airborne, as they head through Aqua Minerale. Blade must have made that overtake. Oh, he spins out! He has spun! There at turn 13. Oh, thank goodness he didn't end up in the barrier. He was so incredibly close to ending up in the barrier there. But he managed to pull the car up, and he's just given himself a time penalty. No, a big spin there. Somehow kept it out of the wall. And I was mentioning earlier, I think Blade must have made that overtake at Piratella, which, quite frankly, isn't a place where you make a move. Ever. So, credit to Blade for making that move stick, but yeah, he sort of undid all his hard work there at Aqua Minerale. So, that's really unfortunate, but that does happen, especially at turn 13. Such a tricky traction zone heading up the hill. Really, really tough area of the racetrack. Probably the toughest area on the racetrack. Bruno starting to pull away from Kitten Petter. The gap is 9/10 of a second as they head through turns 12 and 13. Bruno has his sights set on the car in front, and that's Elite Game Boy in the Williams. As they head through the chicane, they make their way down the hill towards Ravazza. Bruno using up his battery, trying to get within a second of Game Boy's Williams. Yellows are out again. It's Electric Blade again, and it's turn 13 again. No obvious damage on the Alpine, so he should be alright. As Vermeer pits. Now the pit window was lap 14 to 18 according to the game, so this is an undercut attempt from Vermeer on the game's suggested pit window. He's had enough of those medium tyres and he's bolted on the hards. Now, where will he come out relative to Electric Blade? Electric Blade's making his way down the straight towards turn 1. There he is, as Airborne Tiger has crashed. He has crashed out at the exit of Tamburello, and we have a safety car. Lap 13 of 32, we have a safety car. There is Airborne Tiger. It was looking like another double points finish for Alfa Romeo. It is no longer the case. Our first retirement and our first safety car. And this has saved Artemello. It's saved Berzi as well, who have had a torrid start to this Grand Prix. This will allow them to catch up to the back of the field, try and salvage a result. Not only that, but with only 10 drivers left, you'll be able to score points. Barber, will he head into pit lane? He most certainly does. What will he pit onto? Set of softs, set of mediums? Let's find out. For Mitch Burns and Elite Game Boy, they'll be pitting onto the hard tyre and they'll go to the end of the race on those. For Barber, it's a set of mediums, so I'm guessing he'll try and get to the end of the race on those tyres. Be a bit of a stretch, but I do believe it's doable. According to the game, the pit window was lap 14 to 18, so the game believes the medium tyre can do 18 laps. We got 19 laps to go, and we're going to do a few laps behind the safety car, so I think those medium tyres can make it. There is Vermeer, and he'll come out. He'll come out behind Mitch Burns. So that undercut attempt has completely backfired thanks to the safety car. He now has a car between him and Barber. Everyone else has made their stops. So Both Electric Blade and Burzy moving on to hard tyres. Artemello is going to commit to these hard tyres. Get to the end on those. Alright. So we've got Barber at the front of the field on the medium compound tyre. You'll have to try and get to the end of the race on those. Mitch Burns, Vermeer and Elite Game Boy there on the hard tyre. They'll quite easily make it to the end. Bruno Diaz is next on the mediums. Kitapeta as well on the medium tyre, same with VTEC and P7. Electric Blade, Burzy and Artemello there on the hard compound tyre. But as I mentioned before, actually all three of those drivers, Blade, Burzy and Artemello, they all got into some sort of trouble during this opening stint. So this is a much needed safety car for them. It'll allow them to recover some lost time and try and make a race of this, essentially. Just be waiting on Artemello to cling on to the back of this train, and we'll go back on the green flag racing. We'll be doing more than likely one more lap behind the safety car. Then it'll duck back into pit lane and we'll go back on the green flag racing. In the meantime, we'll take a look at race director, if it works. Thank you. So everyone's made at least one stop. Artemello's made two, and that was thanks to his incident on the first lap at Tamburello. Incidents on track, collision with Airborne Tiger, so the two did collide. Exceeding track limits warning for Vermeer, Airborne Tiger, Bruno, Electric Blade, Game Boy, Electric Blade with 2, Artemello with 2, Kitapeta with 2, Artemello with 3, hence the time penalty. Electric Blade with 3, hence the penalty. Elite Game Boy with a warning. Terminal damage for Airborne Tiger at lap 13. And another warning for VTEC next to his name. So Game Boy, I believe, is sitting on 2 warnings next to his name. To note, Barber does not have a single warning according to this. Not one. Vermeer has 1 warning next to his name. And that was thanks to lap 1. So alrighty. Not here, Connor. That's where they are. Yeah, no, it was quite a sight in the check-in. We had 10 drivers checked in to race, 10 drivers checked in to not race, and 2 reserves, and 1 me. So, but yeah, a lot of people unable to make it tonight, or a lot of people just not wanting to race at Imola. Either way, it's one of the two. Barber getting temperature into his tyres, getting ready for this restart. As they come around Ravazza and head down the straightaway. As Barber takes off, there he goes. Crosses the line to begin lap 16 of 32. We got 17 laps to go. And Game Boy is under assault from Diaz. Heading around turn 1, down towards Variante Tamburello. Diaz needs to send it in deep. Can't send it in deep enough, it seems. Game Boy hangs on to P4 as they head out of turn 4, down towards Variante Villeneuve. Here comes Diaz down the inside. An audacious move at turn 5. Well done, Diaz. You can see Game Boy reacted to Diaz moving to the inside, but he reacted too late to the move. And Diaz just slingshotted by. Great move there. Up the hill, around turn 8. Barber with a almost 1 second lead already, but that is expected. He's on the medium compound tyre. He needs to make the most of those tyres now before they inevitably drop off. Up the hill, around turn 13, towards Variante Alta. 3.5 tenths, 4 tenths separating these two, Mitch Burns and Vermeer. And Diaz is right behind this as well. Similar story with Barber. Diaz needs to make the most of those tyres now, while they're still fresh. Around turn 16, down the hill towards Ravazza, turn 17. Oh, as Vermeer almost goes into the back of Mitch Burns there. That was very, very close. As they head around turn 18, back down the main straightaway towards the final corner, turn 19. It's Barber asserting his authority out in front. He is awfully quick. Vermeer, he's awfully quick in a straight line. Here he goes around the outside at Tamburello. Mitch fights back. Can't fight hard enough, I'm afraid. Vermoo on the outside was able to carry in so much more speed. He was able to hold his track position. And as a result, Mitch just had to back out. Otherwise, there would have been contact. And Mitch more than likely would have spun. Around the hairpin of Tozer, turn 7. Up the hill towards turn 8. Diaz closing in the Mercedes-Benz. Petr closing... excuse me. Petr closing in on a lead Game Boy in P5. As they head down the hill towards Aqua Minerale. Bruno not quite close enough to attack through here. Gets a lovely run, though, up the hill. Over the crest. Towards Variante Alta. Diaz close, looking to the inside here. A big send. Mitch leaves him room. And Bruno drives round the Ferrari into P3. Kitten Petr getting by Elite Game Boy as well. And now he has an opportunity to get by the Ferrari of Burns as they head down towards Ravazza. Doesn't go for a move, but he can try and set up a nice run out of turn 18 to try and create an overtake at Tamburello. He's 2/10 behind. He's right on the gearbox. He's using battery as well. And he drives around the Ferrari. Petr is into P4. Lead Game Boy watching along in P6 as Burns tried to create a mistake there for Kitten Petr. He was weaving about on the straight, trying to suggest he was going to dive down the inside, but Petr held firm. As a result, he's still in P4. Meanwhile, that's in front. 4.1 seconds. Hooey, that's a gap. Vermoo, though, doing a nice job, holding his own in P2. As Artemella gets by Burzy. That was at Piratella. I hazard a guess that Burzy might have let him through there. Over the crest towards Variante Alta. VTech closes in, but not by enough to attack into the chicane. But he is right on the back of Game Boy. It doesn't get a nice enough run, though, out of the chicane. Game Boy... he's trying to close in on Mitch Burns. Mitch, meanwhile, is trying to keep within a second of Kitten Petr and P4 as Barmer sets a new fastest lap, 17.9. There goes Mitch into the wall. He's lost control coming out of Ravazza, and you can see telltale sign on the telemetry. The overtake button switched on. I reckon he switched it on too early. There's so much power going through the rear axle, he spun out. VTech having to cut the chicane there at turn 3. And he's now down to P8 behind Artemello. Must have overshot turn 2. Had to go into the gravel trap. As a result, he's lost 2 positions. He's now right behind Artemello. And he's got Burzy behind him. Meanwhile, gap still extending, 5.3 seconds, and the gap is shrinking between P2 and 3. Bruno is closing in. Up the hill towards Variante Alta. The gap between these two is 0.6 of a second. Through the chicane, turns 14 and 15. Up towards turn 16. Bruno lost a considerable amount of time through there. 0.3 in fact through that section alone. Around Ravazza, turn 18. Down the main straight away we go. Bruno will have DRS. But we know that Vermoo has got some pretty good straight line speed in that Red Bull, and it shows. Diaz, even with DRS, has only gained about a tenth and a half than this straight. As Electric Blade gets by Game Boy, Artemello tries to have a look down the inside of Game Boy there at turn 2, but rather wisely didn't commit to the move. He wasn't quite close enough, and he didn't have enough momentum to try and send it down the inside. Through Variante Villeneuve, turns 5 and 6, up towards the hairpin of Tozer. Game Boy just keeping it cool. He knows Artemello is right on the back of him. Arta gets a really nice exit. Oh, but the second phase of that exit was quite poor. He had a big wiggle there. The initial exit was quite good, but that sort of second phase from Arta wasn't anywhere near as good. Around turns 12 and 13, Arta is right on the gearbox of Game Boy. Loses a little bit of time up the hill. Closes right up on the brakes as they go through Variante Alta. Running a bit wide there, Arta. Using the full width of the circuit there. as they head down the hill towards Ravazza. VTech is in this fight as well. He's 6/10 behind Artemello. So it's a 4-car fight for P5 on track. And Berzi isn't too far behind this either. Down the main straightaway, Game Boy and Arta, they have DRS open, but it's the Brazilian who's got the pace advantage. Down the inside at turn 1, he gets through. Oh, but Game Boy fights back. He clobbers the curb, there's contact, and he spins. Oh, and so does Artemello. He's off the racetrack as well. Deep in the gravel trap, entering turn 4. Can't go side by side through Tamburello. It's really tough to do so. And they're going to go side by side through Villeneuve. Oh my goodness. Oh, contact again between the two cars. As Game Boy gets in front. You can see Game Boy heading into Tamburello. He sent it in incredibly deep. Clobbered the inside curb at turn 3. And as a result, he couldn't turn the car. He really couldn't turn the car on those curbs. And he slammed into the side of Artemello, spinning out. Oh, and a rear-end shunt there from Arta. As he checks the car up, he's realised his mistake. He's making sure Game Boy stays in P8. Oh dear, these two have come to blows, haven't they? Over the course of that lap. What a few occasions. Here comes Bruno, down the inside at turn 2. And he gets in front at turn 3. Nice move. Had to send it in pretty deep there to make that work. But he managed to pull it off. Awesome job there from Bruno. A nice heads-up driving from Vermeulen. Not have any contact whatsoever between the two cars. Oh, but a big wiggle from Bruno. This opens the door for Vermeulen. It doesn't open up enough, though. He's 3/10 behind. So he's not close enough to attack. But that was a huge moment from Bruno. Got on the gas way too early. Out to turn 9. Out to turn 7, sorry. As Vermeulen gives Bruno a bit of a hurry up there. At the exit of turn 13. As they head up towards Variante Alta. Plenty of wheel spin there according to the telemetry. But I do believe that's a glitch. As Kitten Petter. He's now in this fight for P2 on track. He's 8/10 behind Vermeulen in P3. So he'll get DRS down this straight. And Vermeulen, he'll get DRS on Bruno. And we know how quick he is in a straight line. Here he comes. And through he goes. A simple move there for Vermeulen. Just demonstrating what straight line speed can do. You can have all the downforce in the world like Bruno has, but if you can't build up a gap early to your rivals, downforce doesn't really mean much in the race. Straight line speed is key to hanging on to position. Meanwhile, Kitten Petter, he has lost a little bit of time to the top too, but critically he is still within a second of the two cars in front. Through turns 12 and 13. Oh, understeer there from Bruno. Losing a little bit of time. As Petter closes to within 7/10 of the car in front. Through the chicane. Down the hill. Towards turn 16. And then the Ravazza curves. Turn 17 and 18. Bruno has lost a considerable amount of time to Vermeulen on this lap. Will not be able to gain it back with DRS here. What's Kitten Petter's straight line speed like? Well, I can tell you what his battery's like. It's almost full. 95% for Kitten Petter when he head onto the straight. Petter has been in battery conservation mode and he's got plenty of it. Can't say the same for the two drivers in front of him. Vermeulen has 5% and Bruno has 15%. So Petter, he needs to play a smarter game here. If he can keep within a second over these few laps, he will put himself in a fantastic position at the end of the race. Bum out in front, minding his own business. We got Sector 2 yellows. It's Electric Blade spinning out at the exit of Toza. Can't see any bits of front wing. So I think he kept it out of the wall again. Somehow. Kept it out of the wall at Aqua Minerale, and he's now kept it out of the wall at both Toza and Piratella. Oh, not quite. Not quite. No, he's going to put it in the wall. Yeah, there you go. He's now put it into the wall. He's having a great time getting out of that gravel trap. Oh. Now he's going. As you can see, these cars are not designed for rallycross. Oh, and he spun out again in front of Mitch Burns, who now goes into P9. Yeah, Blake's not having a fun time out there. Petter's still within a second of the two in front. Now lap 25 of 32, we got about 7 2/3 laps to go. So we've got a fair way to go through this race. Up the hill around turn 8 towards Piratella. Bruno closing in. But you, like I've mentioned before, you cannot pass through this middle sector. It's really, really tough to pass through here. It's very much a follow the leader sort of sector. Into the pits goes Electric Blade. And he hasn't retired. He'll probably move on to the soft compound tyre. Maybe try and snag fastest lap or something for himself. You can see Bruno has saved up a bit of battery as well. He's now on 33% as Barmer sets exactly that. A new fastest lap. 1 minute 17.7. Gee whiz. Vermeulen spending battery. Spending battery that he doesn't have. He's just hit 0. He's out of battery. He's out of juice. There's Electric Blade trying to get out of the way. Yeah, Bruno, he's saving up his resources. Petter has still got plenty. Down towards Variante Villeneuve, Sector 1 yellows again. Is that Mitch? No. It was the other Ferrari, was it? Was it VTEC making a mistake? Might have been. Or it was Electric Blade having a moment. Well, he's having a moment right now. He's demonstrating the Alpine's lawn mowing capabilities, which I've seen on a few occasions in Contest of Speed. The Alpine has been quite a good lawnmower on several occasions. No, it's quite a filthy looking car now as well. Look at all the dirt on the side pods and everything. Gee whiz. Barmer, sorry. Well, yeah, Barmer out in front, minding his own business. Meanwhile, these three, they're definitely in each other's business as Barmer sets a new fastest lap. 17.7 again, so he must have only improved by a few thousandths, maybe a few hundredths of a second. Bruno sitting in the slipstream. He's using up his battery now. Down the inside at turn 1. And at the beginning of lap 27, he retakes P2. Through Tamburello. Coming out of the iconic chicane towards Variante Villeneuve. Bruno, he needs to build a gap now. He cannot let Vermeulen stay within a second of him. So essentially, Bruno needs to max it through the corners. Sector 1 yellows again. It is Electric Blade again. He's having a great time. Out of Piratella, down the hill towards Aqua Minerale. The gap between P2 and 3, 7/10. So Bruno, he's inching away, but I don't think he's building enough of a gap. And that's not Electric Blade, that's Artemello. He's backwards. Heading into Toza. He's made a mistake at the exit of Villeneuve. And he's now backwards. Trying to flick spin it back in the right direction. He roughly does it. Right. Why is it? He was barely at full throttle. Why was the engine revving at 12,000 RPM? He was barely at full throttle. He was barely at, like, 30% throttle. And the engine was like, yes, I am revving to the absolute max. I love this game. Oh, as Bruno has made a mistake through Variante Villeneuve. And now Vermeulen closes to within 2/10 of the Mercedes driver. So a crucial mistake there from Bruno. He could not afford to make that mistake. Oh, and he's run wide. He's lost control, but gathered it up beautifully. How did he save that? Just put on a whole heap of opposite lock, and somehow he managed to straighten that Mercedes out. Vermeulen, 4/10 behind. And he's got a bit of battery to play with, but so does Kittenpetter. When does he use it? The leader, Barmer, has just started lap 29. Meanwhile, Artemello is doing some donuts at Tamburello. Now he's pointed in the right direction. The leader is coming around. Through he goes. Here comes Vermeulen. That incredibly fast Red Bull goes down the inside of turn 2 and gets in front of turn 3. Vermeulen retakes second. Mitch Burns gets by Artemello now. Arta's down to 9th position. In fact, he's stationary. Oh, hello. Oh, no. That's Vermeulen going off the circuit there. And here comes Bruno around the outside. Oh, and there's Arta spinning out again as Bruno takes second. Oh, how did these three get around Arta? I have absolutely no idea. But Arta, right in the middle of the racetrack, got in front of all three of these guys. Almost created a massive accident. And somehow, some way, all three of them got through. It has to be a miracle. And somehow Vermeulen has kept control of his car. He had to take to the grass to avoid the Haas. And he's still running. And he's still within a second of Bruno. Through Ravazza. Out of the penultimate turn. He runs wide, Vermeulen. And that will allow Kittenpetter to draw alongside and pass the Red Bull. Now, Petter, he needs to attack. He needs to use that battery that he saved up for the entire race. As Artemello has been given a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. Bruno, he needs to max it. He needs to make full use of what he has left. As Artemello gets another 5-second time penalty and another 5-second time penalty. I'm guessing he's retiring from the race. Yeah, he's retired from the race. Little surprise in that. Around turn 8, up towards turn 9, Piratella. Bruno's chucked it in. Kittenpetter using up his battery, trying to close the gap, and he is closing bit by bit as they head up the hill. Oh, and he's lost it, but he's gathered it. He's lost it again, and Vermeulen's off the circuit into the wall. Vermeulen is out of the Grand Prix. Oh, no. Petter lost it heading up the hill. He managed to gather it back up. But he lost it a little bit again, and Vermeulen had to take avoiding action, which has put himself into the wall. There at turn 13, Vermeulen is out of the race. Oh my giddy aunt. Drama right at the end of the race. It's ruined that battle for P2. Bruno's now got a relatively healthy sized gap to Kittenpetter, so he should take P2. And Kittenpetter, he's got a huge gap to the car behind. He should take third. Oh, that is so unfortunate. That is so incredibly unfortunate. Well, now it's just survival from here on out. Just get around the racetrack now and get to the checkered. Oh my goodness. Barmer's making his way back onto the main straightaway. He will begin lap 32 of 32. Can't take any credit away from our championship leader, our two-time AM1 Series champion. He has been in a class of his own during this season. As I've mentioned, we've had 5 races so far. He's finished on the podium in all of them, and he's won 3. And it's looking like he's going to add another podium, and he's going to add another win. This guy is untouchable in AM1 at the moment. He's driven quite a few perfect races, and this is going to be another. It'll be a full complement of points, I believe, as well. Not quite. Mitch Burns has fastest lap, and I don't really think Barmer will be able to take that away. If we bring up lap data, we'll be able to see what his final lap right at the end of this race will be, because as you can see, he is dumping battery. He heads around turn 16, down towards the Ravazza curves of 17 and 18. Comes out of there in one piece. Another dominant display from Barmer 22. He wins here at Imola. He wins the San Marino Grand Prix. Bruno Diaz will be the next car to finish, and the gap at the end of this race is going to be over 18 seconds. Really is a statement. Barmer's in a class of his own. And Kitten Petter will complete the podium in third. What could have been for Petter, it could have been P2. But unfortunately, that tiny mistake at Acqua Minerale cost him that chance. As VTEC will end up finishing fourth, he will more than likely get driver of the day from the game. Bursey will round out the top 5. And Elite Game Boy, he'll cross the line in P6. He'll be happy with that, I think. Nice bundle of points. Our final finisher will be Electric Blade. No, I don't think you hit him either, Petter. It's just you made a mistake heading up the hill. And then you gathered it up, then you sort of lost it again, and he had to try and avoid you, and he ended up losing the car and put it into the wall. So, well, no. That was certainly an interesting race here at Imola. Driver of the day has actually been given to Kitten Petter for his performance. To be honest, I think everyone who actually ended up racing in this should be given driver of the day. Yeah, but as I've mentioned before, attendance is kind of shocking. So, Barmer 22, for the fourth time this season, will stand on the top step. He will extend his championship lead quite significantly. He is untouchable. P2 will go to Bruno Diaz. P3, Kitten Petter from McLaren. So, the unofficial final results of the San Marino Grand Prix. Barmer 22 is your race winner by a margin of 18.2 seconds over Bruno Diaz in P2. Kitten Petter will complete the podium places in third. VTEC went from 11th, finished 4th at the end of this race, yet Kitten Petter was given driver of the day, even though he made up fewer places. I don't get this game sometimes, but fair enough. Bursey P5, followed by Elite Game Boy in P6. Mitch Burns was fastest lap, finishes 7th. Our final finisher is Electric Blade in P8. Vermou is classified, even with his shunt. He's classified 3 laps down in 9th. Only 2 proper retirements, Artemello and Airborne Tiger. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, I've always believed that field size has never dictated race quality. And I think with a field of 11 cars, we got a pretty interesting race. We had battles here and there. We had plenty of drama as well. But, and one hell of a drive from Barmer again. He is quite literally untouchable at the moment. And he's not making mistakes. That's the other thing. He's driving fast, but he's not making mistakes. So, he's going to have a humongous lead heading into the next round. But no, kudos to everyone watching as well. hopefully I made it as entertaining as possible. Because it definitely wasn't one of the worst races I've commentated. That's for sure. I've definitely seen worse here at Imola. No, I think, chat, this will wrap everything up here at Imola. We can move on to the next round, where hopefully attendance is a bit better. Hopefully we get another interesting race. I think with everything said and done, it's time for us to end the stream. I've been Lane Everingham. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for round 7 of the championship at the Red Bull Ring for the Austrian Grand Prix. Definitely one of the better racetracks we go to on the schedule. It always tends to be an interesting race. So hopefully next week we get more drivers in. We have a better race weekend overall. But until next week, it's goodbye.